The first people no one remembers asterisk, they were here before the pyramids rose, before Rome burned, before the first syllable of any written language in Southeast Asia was ever etched into stone. They walked across ancient land bridges when the sea levels were low, when the Philippines were still connected to Asia, when the world was wild and unclaimed. They are black, Asian, indigenous, ancient, and they are disappearing not from extinction, for memory. Who are the Aeta? Why have you never heard their name in school? Why does a people who've lived in the Philippines for over 40,000 years get treated like a footnote, or worse, a myth? And how is it possible that the first humans in the Philippines are now fighting just to be seen? This isn't just history. This is erasure in real time, because the Aeta didn't vanish. They were pushed into the shadows by colonizers, by governments, by a world that equates progress with their disappearance. So let's ask the question no one wants to answer. Why is the oldest civilization in the Philippines also the most invisible? The 40,000-year-old bloodline asterisk. Let's start with science, because the Aeta aren't mysterious, they're measurable. In 2019, a landmark study published in Nature analyzed the DNA of over 1,000 individuals across the Philippines. The results were staggering. The Aeta possessed the highest level of Denisovan ancestry of any population on Earth, up to 5% more than Papuans or Aboriginal Australians. Asterisk Nature. The southward route and the peopling of the Philippines. 2019 asterisk Danis. An extinct human species, not myth, not legend, real, and the Aeta carry their blood. This means their ancestors were part of the first great human migration out of Africa, taking the southern dispersal route along the coasts of India and into Sundaland, the vast Pleistocene-era continent that once linked the Philippines to mainland Asia. Asterisk. They arrived over 40,000 years ago, long before the Austronesian speaking. Farmers who dominate the region today, Dr. Rafe Brown, curator at the University of Kansas Biodiversity Institute, puts it bluntly, the Aeta are not just indigenous, they're prehistoric. They are the baseline population of island Southeast Asia. Everything else came later. Is it ignorance or is it deliberate? Because calling the Aeta Negritos a colonial term meaning little black people isn't just outdated. It's dehumanizing. It reduces a 40,000-year-old lineage to a stereotype, and it implies they are less than less advanced, less civilized, less human. But what if the opposite is true? What if their survival through ice ages, volcanoes, wars, and colonization is the greatest proof of intelligence? A civilization without cities asterisk. The Aeta didn't build empires, they didn't carve stone monuments, they didn't write books, so by Western standards, they didn't have a civilization. But that's the lie, because civilization isn't just pyramids and palaces. It's adaptation, sustainability, wisdom, and the Aeta mastered all three. Their world was the forest, the Zambales Mountains, the jungles of Pampanga, the highlands of Tarlac. They lived in small, mobile bands, Citarian, moving with the seasons, following food, avoiding overuse. No one owned land, no one starved, no one hoarded. Their economy. Reciprocity. You give honey, you get metal. You teach tracking, you get cloth. Their government. Consensus elders spoke. Everyone listened. No one ruled their religion. Animism. They believed the wind had a voice. The trees had memories. The volcano had a spirit, and their knowledge is passed down not in classrooms, but in songs, chants, and dreams. They knew which roots cured malaria, which vines could trap wild boar, which birds signaled an approaching storm. This wasn't primitive. It was precision survival. Anthropologist Dr. Laura Lee Junker, who studied Philippine societies, wrote, "The Aeta developed one of the most sophisticated ecological knowledge systems in pre-colonial Southeast Asia. Their understanding of biodiversity far exceeded that of later agricultural societies. Coexistence before conquest." The Aeta weren't isolated. They weren't hermits. They interacted with the Austronesian settlers who arrived around 2000 BCE, but they didn't assimilate. They traded Aeta. exchanged wild honey, rattan, medicinal herbs, and beeswax for metal tools, salt, cloth, and ceramics. Some lowland Filipinos even relied on Aeta guides to navigate the treacherous interior. A 16th century Spanish account from Fray Juan de Plasencia noted, the Itneg Aeta come down from the mountains with their goods. They're shy but honest in trade. They speak a strange tongue, understand the lowland languages. Asterisk, they weren't enemies. They were partners. On their own terms, and they maintained their identity. They didn't adopt rice farming. They didn't abandon their gods. They didn't change their way of life because they didn't need to. They were already successful. But success, in the eyes of empire, is a threat because you can't control people who don't need you. Civilize them or erase them then. In 1521, Magellan landed and everything changed. The Spanish didn't come to learn. They came to convert, conquer, and claim. Their worldview was simple. If you weren't Christian, you were savage. If you didn't farm, you were wasteful. If you didn't wear clothes, you were shameless. The Aeta, they failed every test. Fray Pedro Chirino, a 17th century Jesuit missionary, wrote with disgust, "They live like beasts, naked, sleeping on the ground, eating raw roots and wild meat. They must be brought into the light, even if by force." That's the key phrase, because the Spanish didn't just try to convert the ETA, they tried to erase them. They declared the forests public land, they banned hunting, they forced ETA into missions and encomiendas, systems of forced labor, but the Aeta resisted, not with war, with disappearance. They retreated deeper into the mountains. They became ghosts. Asterisk, and when the Spanish couldn't catch them, they wrote them off. Asterisk, the Negritos are untamable. They will vanish like smoke. Asterisk, vanish. No, they survived, and their survival was an act of resistance. The primitive race, in 1898, the Americans took over, and they brought a new weapon, science, but not to help. To classify, the U.S. Bureau of Non-Christian Tribes was created not to protect, but to study and assimilate. Anthropologists measured Aeta skulls, took photographs, wrote reports, asterisk. One 1910 study called them a pre-Malay race, a relic of the Pleistocene, doomed to extinction in the face of advancing civilization, asterisk doomed. No, targeted because. Doomed is what you call people you don't want to save. In civilization, it's just another word for American control. Schools were built, English was taught, Christianity was pushed. But the Aeta, they were excluded, too remote, too wild, too unassimilable. So they were ignored again, but this time, the damage was cultural. Children who did attend school were mocked for their skin, their hair, their accents. One Aeta elder Mamun, Crisanta Cacao, recalled, "They called us ballot monkey. They said we belonged in the zoo. I stopped speaking my language. I was ashamed to be Aeta." Asterisk, shame. That's the goal of erasure. Not just to remove people from land, but to make them ashamed of who they are. Asterisk, the unsung allies, asterisk, when World War II came. The Aeta's isolation became their strength. The Japanese occupied the lowlands. The Americans were stranded. And the Aeta, they became guerrilla scouts. Their knowledge of the jungle was unmatched. They led American soldiers through hidden trails, located enemy camps, rescued downed pilots. Asterisk, one U.S. officer. Colonel Russell Volkman wrote in his memoirs, "The Aeta were our eyes and ears. Without them, we would have been blind. They moved like shadows, knew every stream, every cave. They were the best scouts I've ever seen." Asterisk, but when the war ended, no medals, no recognition, no mention in history books. They fought for freedom, but not for themselves, because when peace came, the Philippines modernized, and the Aeta were pushed further into the margins. Pinatubo and the loss of home then. In 1991, Mount Pinatubo erupted. It was one of the largest volcanic explosions of the 20th century, and the Aeta were at ground zero. Over 20,000 Aeta were buried under ash. their villages destroyed, their sacred sites gone. They became refugees in their own country. The government promised aid. NGOs stepped in. Relief. Camps were built, but many Aeta were relocated to lowland areas, concrete boxes and urban slums. Far from the forest here, they faced discrimination, unemployment, alcoholism, depression there. Children struggled in schools that didn't teach their language. Their healers were ignored by clinics. Then, in 1991, Mount Pinatubo erupted. It was one of the largest volcanic explosions of the 20th century, and the Aeta were at ground zero. Over 20,000 Aeta were buried under ash, their villages destroyed, their sacred sites gone. They became refugees in their own country. The government promised aid. NGOs stepped in. Relief. Camps were built, but many Aeta were relocated to lowland areas, concrete boxes and urban slums, far from the forest. Here, they faced discrimination, unemployment, alcoholism, depression. Their children struggled in schools that didn't teach their language. Their healers were ignored by clinics. Their leaders were sidelined in land decisions. And when the media left, the world forgot, but the land didn't return. Mining companies moved in. Loggers cut down the forests. Farmers expanded into ancestral domains. The Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act (IPRA) of 1997 promised justice. It granted Aeta communities the right to claim ancestral lands, but in practice, the process is slow, bureaucratic, corrupt. As of 2023, less than 10% of Aeta ancestral domains have been officially titled. One Aeta leader, Erasure said, "They say we have rights, but when we go to court, we're told the land belongs to the state. When we protest, we're called troublemakers. When we stay silent, we lose everything." The fight for recognition, but the Aeta are not gone. They are fighting back. In recent years, Aeta voices have risen. Youth groups are teaching the Aeta language in schools. Eco-tourism projects allow outsiders to learn from, not exploit their culture. Land mapping initiatives use GPS to document ancestral territories. Social media is amplifying their stories. In 2021, the Aeta Ancestral Land Titling Project secured over 3,000 hectares in Zambales. A victory, and cultural pride is returning. Children are learning songs, elders are sharing stories, healers are being documented because the Aeta aren't just surviving, they are reclaiming, but the battle isn't over. Deforestation continues. Land crabs persist. Climate change threatens their highland homes. The last warning. The Aeta are not a museum exhibit. They are not a lost tribe. They are not a myth. They are alive. They are here. They are watching. And they are asking, why do you forget us? The Aeta's story isn't just about the Philippines. It's about all of us. Because every Indigenous people carries knowledge that modernity has forgotten. How to live with the earth. How to share, not hoard. How to survive, not destroy. And if we lose them, we don't just lose history, we lose our future.